He was right.
He was right.
In fact, the lacrosse team, when they did their first whip around the moon back in June after they launched, they had to launch from the Cape Canaveral. They went to the moon with the LRO mission. They then looped around the moon into this huge orbit that took them like a month to go around the Earth. They did 3 very distant passes, and then they zapped it into the crater on October 9th. That first swing by, which was, I think, on the morning of the 23rd of June, they took some infrared imagery and broadcast it live. And you can see on that infrared imagery of the whole moon, the whole disk, there's this, the temperatures are basically correlated with color. You know, the coldest temperatures were blue, and the hottest were red. Well, at the edge of the moon, it should be red, right, to the very edge, because there's no air.
Right.
Except it wasn't. There is this wonderful yellow curved line on the far side over a tremendous arc, indicating there was a layer above the hot ground at high noon, which had a lower temperature than the surface, which, of course, in any natural moon model is impossible. There has to be something at that altitude radiating at that temperature for the detectors on the lacrosse spacecraft to see. They released that imagery, which was stunning confirmation of the entire ancient lunar dome model. It was at that point that I thought, wait a minute, this is not the way NASA normally plays this. They then released photographs of the so-called plume about a week after the impact. A week after October 9th. And on those images, and all of this is on enterprisemission.com, you can see incredible structure going down into the moon in those shadowed, cratered areas. Because to see at the bottom, this plume, they had to jack up the gain.
Right.
So they set the settings on the cameras so you could see into the shadows. Now, you're not seeing into the shadows because obviously if something is down in the dark, you're not going to see it. What they were looking at was the grid structure of this dome through the dome down into the shadows underneath. And this is why I'm saying this mission is the beginning of a turnaround, I think, for NASA. A turnaround for the whole cover-up of the last 40-some years. And I think this president, Barack Obama, is going to be the guy who actually discloses something very significant. There are too many dots from several different directions, and too many analysts that I talk to, including some who are kind of, shall we say, very conservative on the right side of the political spectrum, who are looking now to this president to make some official announcement that the human race is not alone.
How did water, and I want to get into your Mayan special, how did water get on the moon in the first place? It has no atmosphere. It's not like it rained, right?
No.
How did it get there?
Well, in our model, the moon is a natural object which got built on. It has cities on top of it, just like the Earth does. Natural objects, natural planets, have water in them. When they formed in the solar system billions of years ago, they accumulated water. The problem with the Apollo analysis was that they picked up rocks which have been smashed and battered and elevated in temperature, so they're not representative of pristine moon material. Right. The lacrosse experiment sampled pristine material in an environment where the water is still there. They also found bizarre other things. They found an unusual amount of sodium. Now, wait a minute. Sodium is a light metal. If the moon formed the way that we've been told it formed, like a planet smashed into the Earth, about the size of Mars billions of years ago, and the moon got spun off, that was supposed to be the model to satisfy the geochemistry of the moon rocks that they brought back, because it had no sodium in it. Then years later, they were looking through telescopes, and they saw that this wispy atmosphere the moon has, which really doesn't deserve the term atmosphere, because it's like 0.00000.
It's almost non-existent.
It's almost non-existent. It's called an exosphere, if you want to be technical. They found that it had sodium. When LaCrosse hit, when the Centaur rocket hit and LaCrosse was observing, they not only observed a strong sodium line from the spectrometers on the spacecraft following the impact, they saw it from the Earth. Hit peak, and the Keck Observatory, the two that I know about, both saw flashes of sodium at the moment of impact. Well, sodium should not exist on the moon because in the model of how the moon was formed, it's supposed to have long gone. They also saw mercury, the metal mercury.
Yeah.
Now, mercury is a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the solar composition, the composition of the solar system. They've seen some unusual things that have kind of leaked out of the project. Bottom line, if you put all this stuff together, it says to me technology. It says to me buildings, construction. They impacted in an urban center. It'd be like if you crashed something into downtown Los Angeles, you wouldn't see rocks and soil. You would see steel, concrete, glass. You'd see all kinds of high-tech sodium and glass. I believe this is only a tiny fraction of the story. What I'm going to do in another week, next weekend, Chet Snow has given me time at the aptly named Secrets Conference in Tempe, Arizona.
That's supposed to be a hot conference.
It's a hot conference. Steve Bassett's going to be there. Stephen Greer is going to be there.
Michael Salla, I think, is going to be
there. David Wilcox is going to be there. A whole bunch of people. We're going to be talking about this idea that there's now such an accumulation of data that this president is on the verge, maybe, of actually announcing that the human race is not alone. And if people want to get tickets...
I'm not sure they're going to do it like Wilcox.
No, they're not going to have
be flanked by...
No. David and I are having this wonderful argument. But I do think that we're going to see the opening gambit be the safe things, which is ruins. The idea that you look at ruins, you need to have more information, means you start the ball rolling. Somebody builds ruins. You don't know who they are, you don't know how old they are, you don't know where they are, but you know that you're not alone. It's the safe way to get your toes in the water, if we can go back to the water metaphor. So if people want to get tickets, there are some tickets available. For those in the Coast audience who do not have web access, it's 928-204-1962. That's 928-204-1962. And I'm going to be talking about the implications with slides and the visuals and all the stuff I usually do of this finding of an enormous amount of water.
So people should be ready for a 2-day conference if you're going to be up there.
They're giving me 2 hours. I'm going to do it all within 2 hours. Let me tell you what else.
You'll take 4. I'm kidding.
As long as we're talking. I have something really important to talk about, which, I mean, there's almost too much news. And I may actually have to have another session, because one of the things that we found after we had written Dark Mission was that there is a very plausible reason for President Kennedy's assassination connected to the cover-up of what NASA's been keeping secret for the last 40, 50 years.
You're going down that road, aren't you?
Well, because that's where the data leads. As a serendipitous, completely unexpected part of that research, which came about actually because I was doing the research for the revised edition, which came out, a month ago, I guess, Dark Mission. By the way, it's very high up on the Amazon list. You know, it's
Again,
yes. New York Times bestseller, revised edition, has 60 new pages and photographs and all that. As part of the research, and it didn't make it into the book because I didn't think it belonged in Dark Mission, but the background is in the book. What I'm going to talk about in Tempe at the Secrets Conference is really astonishing, unequivocal evidence of two things regarding the assassination of the president. One is I can now prove it was a conspiracy. When you see the evidence, I've showed the evidence to Joseph Farrell, blew him away. He came down and visited us this summer. I showed it to him in my office. He looked at it. He said, "Oh, my God."
Now, when you say prove it was a conspiracy, which
Yes.
I've always believed, you're saying based on pictures or based on fact?
It's based on both. It's based on official archives. It's based on government documents. It's based on imagery. And I'm going to tell the whole story in Tempe. And it is definitely, it is so important that Jim Mars has looked at it.
Right.
He is equally entranced. He is stunned by what this means. He has offered to present simultaneously at the assassination conference held every year in Dallas
this information
on the 22nd. So I'm making up a little memory stick. and I'm going to